think so.
The stream is live.
What's your name on there?
Uh,
Lauren. And
yep, just
it's
Lauren.
going it's going live. It's going live on your page.
Uh-huh. And we're live right now on Instagram.
All right.
Give an introduction. What's up, y'all? Glad to have y'all back for another episode or live show of Real Talk, Real Growth, where we're going to have some amazing conversations today. I know that we're going to be doing part 2 of our Fighting Fair series. So I'm excited for us to get into this conversation today. I'm Miles the Millennial.
And it's your boy Rex Howard Jr.
And this is Coach Lauren J., your favorite relationship coach.
We're back again with another show for you guys. I know this conversation is going to be valuable. You guys have been tuning in. The views have been coming in like crazy. We're loving it. All that we ask is that if you're already tuned in and watching, hurry up and send it out to everybody that you know. Send them the show. Let them know that there's 3 individuals on here that are about to have an amazing conversation that's going to provide a lot of value to your lives. So, guys, how are you guys doing this week?
Man, I'm blessed. So I'm watching it live on my Facebook, but I'm not visible.
Oh yeah, I can't see you either, Rex. I'm on Instagram.
Where you went? You done ran off the plug. Hold on.
Yeah. So I'm not visible.
I don't know. No, he's not. Okay, I just put you back on. Can you see now?
Let's see.
Hey, Darrell.
Let's see. I am okay. I can see myself.
All right.
Okay, here we go. Here we go.
Oh, yeah, guys. So how are you guys doing? Rex, you doing well, bro?
Man, I'm blessed, man. Today's been a really good day. I feel good. My clients went well. Coaching calls went well. So I'm feeling really good, man. How you doing?
Doing well, brother. A little under the weather, but filled with the spirit. Coach, I want to hear more about your day. What's been going on? How are you doing?
Man, I'm, hanging on.
Yeah.
Now it's been a good day. Coaching, cooking. I cooked 2 meals before the live. Okay. two meals before the live. So now it's all good. I always look forward to being with you guys. So I know it's gonna be a good night.
Absolutely. Well, I don't want to hold us back any longer. So, Rex, you want to lead the charge on our questions for today?
I felt like you was getting ready to say so. Let's talk like man. Hey, no, for real. So yeah. So let's go to get this bad boy rolling. Once again, we're having a conversation that are geared towards conflict in relationships.
Yeah.
And how to navigate conflict. So the question that we're going to start tonight off with is this. What are the key signs that fear is influencing how you approach conversations or conflict in your relationship? So once again, what are the key signs that fear is influencing how you approach conversations or conflict in your relationship?
That's good. Who wants to go first?
Coach.
I got the look on my face. And before we get into it, let me tell you what's creating conflict right now. Go ahead and hit my bros DMs and they link in the bio. They didn't ask me to do this, but they both got on therapy gear. Go and show out. I'm gonna tell y'all right now. He go a conflict issue we got right now. I did not get the memo.
That was not intentional. We just threw this on. I promise you, we didn't have a conversation.
He came up in here like the Bobsey twins. Okay, going on. That's a conflict I got right now. No, I'm joking. No, y'all gotta get that, man. I'm definitely getting my gear. So that was a quick impromptu to kick us off. But definitely hit Rex in the bio, a link in his bio. I know it's in Miles' bio as well. Yeah. So definitely tap in. So one of the ways that we know that fear is driving us basically, and it's not, I would say when we're not vulnerable about our feelings. And when I just say vulnerable, people think of like gentle softness. When I say vulnerable, I think about rawness. Yeah. How raw are you being about your feelings? Because sometimes we'll be so focused on being real that we're not raw. And so your partner doesn't fully know like how bad this situation really is, because we're trying to self-preserve and we're trying to save, my mama say face and tail at the same time. And so when we're trying to minimize exposure about what we're really feeling, that is a very key sign that fear is definitely driving our, not only our decision making, but our communication style.
That's good.
That is really good. What you got to add to that, Miles?
I would say when you're defensive, when you constantly have your guard up, and this goes along the lines of what Coach is saying with vulnerability, right? When you are getting triggered and you're really fighting a battle that at the end of the day it doesn't make sense when you think about it, without your emotions involved, that's a key sign that your emotions for sure are the things that are holding you uh back in that particular circumstance, and particularly those emotions of fear, of doubt, some type of negative emotions that are prohibiting you from being able to open up and be vulnerable, and be able to communicate the way that you need to. When it's about being right versus about actually coming to a conclusion that works for both parties, when it's about my truth versus our truth, when it's so focused on you as the individual and protecting you and your ideologies, your habits, whatever it is, that's a very key sign that there's fear involved. Because what other reason do you have if you're in a relationship, which is supposed to be two people working together? What other reason is there for you to allow anything to get in the way of you communicating with the person that you're supposed to be working together with? There has to be some level of fear, of doubt, of some negative consequence that you believe could happen, some negative emotion that is getting in the way of you being a good communicator the way you need to be. So I think that when you showing up very defensive, that's a key sign.
Absolutely. I think that's really good. And the thing I'll add to that is freezing or fawning, right? So
Mm.
freezing is when you shut down and withdraw, and fawning is when you do something to try to appease somebody, to try to seek favor. So a lot of times, if I want to redirect the conversation to take the heat off myself, I'm going to do something that makes you feel better. So I
Yeah.
make you may find somebody that when their partner is extremely aggressive, they try to turn to sex, right? Because at least we can make this an intimate moment, even though it may be extra aggressive or it may not be a lot of love in it. It'll take the heat off my back when it comes to that. And then when it comes to like completely withdrawing, that's a clear sign that one, you don't have self regulation skills. Two, you don't have the emotional vocabulary to speak on what you want to say. Or three, you may not feel safe enough in that moment to express yourself in a way that may be effective, or to even try to assert yourself, even though you know that may be important in the time. So I think for me that kind of sums it up, and that's a clear sign that fear is a major influence in it.
I love that you guys, have said what you said, because I think we really are encompassing so many different elements of it, because that's really what happens, right? And I think we all have done it in our relationships in one form or another at a certain point in time or another, because you don't know all your unresolved traumas until you get into those circumstances, right? And something happens that triggers them. You go to therapy for a lot of stuff, but sometimes you just don't know what you don't know,
Yep.
right? And then when you come across it, if you are living in that fear and you don't have, like you said, Rex, the ability to self-regulate and to set boundaries and to be introspective, that's when it gets really, really difficult to move forward, because now you've had this thing pop up and you're not really ready to recognize and work through it.
Absolutely. That's really good. That's really good, actually. Coach, you got anything else to add to that?
Last thing I wanted to say was around when we do, like when we use the words like, I never want to get married again, or I never
Mhm.
want to, uh, I don't feel like I can trust again, or when we are emotionless, right? Because we're blaming love for the last time we got hurt versus dealing with the fact that you shouldn't have been with them in the first place. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like you wasn't in India Irie, you wasn't ready for love. Okay. So and that's okay. Because again, you don't know what you don't know. And so a lot of times when I hear like, especially people, who have been married before or who've gone through a really bad breakup and they felt like they gave their all, when you don't see your fault in the situation, that lets me know you're definitely moving from a place of fear.
that's good.
That's actually really good.
That's good.
Okay, cool. So let's hop into number two. How can couples create a environment where both partners feel heard and respected, even during heated arguments? So, once again, how can couples create a safe environment where both partners feel heard and respected, even during heated arguments?
Coach, it's on you.
So my process is called listening with the heart. And in the process of listening with the heart, the goal is to be reminded that this person loves you, even when they're mad with you, they're still mad about you, right? Like they still care. It's the same level of passion. And so when you listen with the heart, you're listening from love. When you're listening from love, then at that point, now you can keep in mind, like, this isn't a personal attack on you, right? And a lot of times, one of the things that I will say, whether I'm coaching clients or even having a conversation myself, is especially when it seems like the person is not hearing, it's like, what is your heart hearing me say? Because if you are reminded that I love you, then now we're able to put down the offense that our ears are hearing, like you didn't care, you weren't thinking about me. Because a lot of times, especially for us women, those are the kind of things we tell ourselves, that we didn't matter to him. Clearly, it wasn't that much. I couldn't have, I wasn't enough for you. And quite honestly, a lot of times it has absolutely nothing to do with that. And
Right.
so when we talk about creating a safe space, it also in turns, like, we have to at that point really think about, okay, am I treating this person like if God personally gave them to me and tasked me with taking care of their heart? And then, like, not over talking them, allowing them to say everything they need to say without you trying to say, that ain't what I meant, that ain't what I said, that ain't what, without that confrontation, and just allowing them to just get their words out and being gentle in your tone. I'll land here. Your words have power, but your tone keeps receipts. It's always about your tone. And
That's really
so
good.
that'll kill off if he's gonna say something back to you ever again.
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
a tone.
that's great. You've hit pretty much all of them, man. I think that's a great strategy, though. The one thing that I will add to that is asking for clarity on what somebody is saying, right? Before you get into responding, saying, hey, so what, if I understand you correctly, what I'm hearing you say is, when I did this, it made you feel this. And because of that, you would like me to do this, right? That creates the door for that person to correct you. And before you go too far down your path of thinking and throwing it out in the atmosphere, which is only going to cause more confusion, and then that person feels like you weren't paying attention and didn't understand them. Now they're frustrated. Now you're sitting here like, I don't know what you want because you can't clearly communicate to me what you want. Ask for clarity with that person on what it is that you believe that they're saying before you say, okay, that is what you're saying, and this is my response to that. So I think that that's a big piece to it, because if we don't get on the same page and we're both trying to give our own opinions, we're writing stuff down, but it's on two different books. We're on two different topics and subject matter. So how are we supposed to really get on the same page if we're not even on the same topic?
Mm.
That's really good. Okay, bet. I like all of that. I'm about to give y'all three things.
Bet.
Um, so the question is, how can couples create a safe environment where both partners feel heard and respected, even during the heated arguments? So thing number one, uh, key thing to remember: start with love and end with love.
Mhm.
Always start with love and end with love. It's just like the sandwich method, right? If you want to give somebody some constructive criticism, hey man, I really appreciate you for showing up the way you've been showing up, but I do have some concerns. X, Y, and Z has been taking place. So this is what I have been seeing for you. This is what I would like to see more of you. But once again, like I said, I want you to let you know I do love you and I appreciate you for hearing me. Start with love, give a little bit of constructive feedback, criticism, want to end with love, right? So that's going to be a great way. Number two, take turns sharing, right? But in the process of taking turns, if there's a person that is on the giving end, then the receiver, if you have a hard time paying attention and following the conversation, grab a notepad, grab a sticky note, and whatever they say, highlight the key points. And when they're done speaking, like Miles said, ask for clarity and say, okay, I heard you say this. You hate it when I leave my shoes in the living room, and you'd much rather me take the shoes to the bedroom. Absolutely, that's what I'm saying. But if your partner responds back and say, "No, that's not what I'm saying," then as the listener, you say, "Okay, well, can you express to me again what you tried to say?" You write it down and you repeat it back to her until you get it right. Once you get it right, then you respond to it, right? But respond to what she is saying, not what you're feeling. Once again, respond to what she is saying, not what you're feeling. It reminds me of a conversation I had with my lady, and she was saying certain things. She said, "How are you feeling?" And I said, "Honestly, I feel attacked right now." And she said, "Well, do you feel like I'm attacking you?" I said, "No, I don't feel like you're attacking me. I feel like your intentions are pure, but that's just how I feel." So once again, if I respond based off me feeling attacked, then I'm going to defend myself. But if I respond from a listening perspective and know that listening with my heart, like Lauren said, then I can hear it differently. And then lastly, this is for couples that have issues with having arguments or heated discussions and they have a hard time navigating through it. Be okay with taking intentional breaks or timeouts,
Yeah.
right? So one thing that's important in the process of doing this, right? I don't recommend doing a 5 to 10 minute break. I recommend doing a 30 minute to an hour break, right? If you need to go take a shower, if you need to go take a walk, if you need to go cook something real quick, or you need to go get your mind right. But in the process of taking that break, be mindful of the things that you're saying to yourself or out loud in that process. The Gottman say that on average, 40% of men, when they take breaks from the conversation that they're having in their head is, "I don't deserve this. Like, I can do better than this." So they're taking their break, but still having internal dialogue that's negative. So when they get back to the conversation, they're just going to repeat what they've already been thinking, right? Versus if you take that break and you think to yourself, listen, you think about every single thing that you love about your wife or about your husband, right? While you take this break and realize this is just a piece of a piece of conflict that we have in this moment. But it does not mean that we have a failed relationship, a failed marriage. It doesn't mean that we don't like each other. It doesn't mean that we have failed in general. It just means that this is something that we need to get over. So, like, once again, it's okay to take intentional timeouts or breaks. Recommended 30 minutes to an hour, hour and a half, but be prepared to come back. And then in the process of you being away from the conversation, be mindful of the internal dialogue that you're having so you don't get back to the conversation even worse than where you left.
That's good. Rex, that was fire.
I appreciate that, big dog. Appreciate
Coach,
that.
you were about to say something. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and don't fight at home.
Mm,
Like
Mm,
I recommend going out, whether it's for a drive, whether it's a walk, whether it's a dinner date, someplace where you're not gonna be prone to shouting, because the soft tone really does turn away wrath.
yeah,
yes.
And that is energy. So if you're fighting and arguing in the house or in your bedroom and you feel like, well, them kids ain't gonna hear, but the energy in the room is still tense.
Yeah.
So don't bring that energy into the bedroom, where you trying to rest, but you don't have peace.
Yeah. That's real.
that's
That's
that
real.
is.
And I think that a key element, and you hit it on at the end, Rex. Coach, you talked about it in your point before, in the question before. Don't personalize these things. Like when you make the problem into the person, it is so hard for you to remember that this is somebody that you love, that this is somebody that cares about you, that this is somebody that has your best interests at heart. It is so much easier to go through something and have the perseverance and the motivation and the desire to get through it, no matter how frustrating it gets. Whenever you're sitting here saying, this is a problem that we are facing together
Yeah.
versus this person is the problem. Because now I'm at war with you versus saying me and you are at war together against this issue. So it is very important that you don't make the problem the person. And I don't, I think that that is so critical and a base level of remembering that, because without it, these problems and the arguments, they take a life of their own, and it's hard to ever come back from them after what's said and what's done.
That's really good. I appreciate that. That's value from both ends. So let's pause there for a second. Do we have any questions in the
We
chat?
do.
You must have felt it. I was about to be like, don't pass up. We got somebody
All
in
right,
the chat. It's
do
on
it.
IG. Miles, you want to read it? You want me to read it?
You go ahead, Coach.
Olive Therapy says, is it normal for this break to last more than a week?
No.
Nah,
Because that's
So
avoidance.
nah.
yeah, 100%. So typically, but it's not unheard of. I will say it's not unheard of, right?
Mm-hmm.
So typically, when couples have not been in couples therapy, when couples didn't grow up in a household where conflict was dealt with, or they grew up in a household where their parents didn't show them conflict, then they believe that conflict isn't something that's supposed to happen. Miles has a very similar story to that. So when you become conflict avoidant, you would much rather act like things are good and push things under the rug because you have that one person in the relationship that really doesn't want to have the conversation. So they'll much rather keep the bad boy rolling. But I did have a couple that came into the office and they say, well, Rex, anytime she gets upset, she'll shut down and she won't talk to me for days. And when she is ready to talk, we don't talk about the problem. We just act like things never happen. So to answer your question, no, it's not normal for couples to go a week without having a conversation. And if that is your situation, then you need to come up with an agreement with your partner and say, hey, I understand that you may need a break, but at most 24 hours.
Mm.
At most 24 hours. If it's 5 p.m. right now, let's take a break from it. Let's try to enjoy the rest of our night, prepare ourselves for tomorrow. But tomorrow, let's revisit this conversation, maybe over some coffee, maybe sitting on the balcony, maybe after the kids are put down in the bed. But let's revisit this. And in the process of thinking about it over the next 24 hours, please prepare your mind for whatever it is that you want to say.
Yeah.
So that was what I'll say.
And I will say this. I think the key is there might be a topic, singular, to where it is so sensitive and so deep that the fire, whatever is going on there, may take longer than that. But
Right.
I think the key is this should not be your norm. Your baseline problems should be getting resolved relatively quickly. Whenever issues come up, they should be addressed. When they come up, so provided that it's a good time, right? It's not in front of a bunch of people, whatever. But y'all can have the space to talk about it. If you can't have it right then and there, you revisit it a little while later, maybe that next day, like you said. But for your baseline to be every single time we got an issue, it's a week before we're ever able to revisit that. That's, in my opinion, starts to border to me on abuse towards the person who really wants to get through this. Because even for me, I am a very like, I get anxious when I know that there's an issue and we haven't talked about it, right? I'm one of those people. So I'm the person in a relationship that's like, man, let's just have a combo now, right? My girlfriend, on the other hand, is like, I need to be in the right space and the right time for it because if my emotions aren't here and if I'm too stressed, it's not going to happen the way we need to. So we balance each other out with that. But if I had to go a week, I don't think there will be any way possible our relationship could last. I think I would go insane. And in that time period, you would start to see a version of me that is not my best version because I'm sitting here anxious, worried, trying to do things, either pleasing you, like Rex said, to try and act like there's not a problem and get through it, or I'm gonna start acting out in the opposite way and just causing problems because it's like, bro, we gonna talk about something.
Yeah.
So, that's just a week is a lot. That's a lot.
Olive Therapy said, thank you so much. My last ad, I had to write it down because I thought it was so funny in my head. And this is for my married couples, FYI. So y'all get over here playing we and Jesus. FYI, this for the married couples, okay? Avoid when you don't avoid, address, then undress, okay? Not bring your marriage back together. Like a good consummation, okay? A good worship, okay? Bring your best worship after. So, address, undress, worship. That's the equation for me.
And that's
So
a
that's
good
making my
motivator, I
marriage
bet. That sounds like a good motivator to say, look, let's make sure we both feel, because if you don't feel it, you ain't gonna do it. Right?
Right.
It's not gonna feel right. But if y'all both feel like you've been heard, and like Rex said, you use that sandwich method, we bringing it back around and you
Yeah.
finish with love. Now it's like, all right, you done show me love. We done been great. All right, now let's go make some love.
No
that part.
facts.
That
Facts,
part.
but don't do it in reverse. Don't make the love before you deal with the conflict, because now you're going to attach the conflict with the love making,
Exactly.
right? And a lot of
Yeah.
times, more often than not, a man can it goes both ways. I'm not going to say more often than not, because one thing that happen in a man is a man can have sex while he's upset, but at the
Yeah.
same time, being upset and being in his feelings or emotions can also give him erectile dysfunction,
It
right?
can.
And then when it comes to women, some women have dissociated enough to the point where they can have sex while they are pissed off. But then again, sometimes when their emotions are extremely high, they don't want to be touched at all.
Yep.
They don't want to be touched at all. So if you make conflict the way that you resolve sex, or if you make sex the way you resolve conflict, that can create toxicity within your relationship. So always address and then undress. Like she said, which is really good.
No.
That's a really good explanation, actually. Okay, bet. So now it leads to question number 3. What strategies can couples use to ensure that their disagreements lead to resolution rather than deepening disconnection? So once again, what strategies can couples use to ensure that their disagreements lead to resolution rather than deepening disconnection? And I'll go ahead and start this bad boy off with the first things on my mind. Never end the conversation if there's not an understanding, right? My lady and I, we had a conversation today, and the last thing she said was, "I hear you." And I said, "I don't like that, because you hearing me." I said, for me, if I ever say I hear you, then that means like, "I hear you, fam. All right, bet." It's almost
Yep.
like a brush off. I'd much rather hear "I understand you."
Yeah.
Right? We have an understanding, because if I'm hurt, it ain't sticking. I need this bad boy to stick. You hear me? So with that being the case, never end the conversation without having an understanding. So if you guys are arguing about the way you communicate, then by the end of the conversation, you say, "Well, babe, what you're expecting from me is X, Y, and Z. And what I'm expecting from you is X, Y, and Z." Now you guys have a mutual understanding. Or the conversation may be around intimacy. I feel like a woman may say, "I feel like every single time you touch me, it's for sex. But I'd much rather you give me non-sexual touch throughout the day." And the man says, "Okay, cool. So you don't want everything to lead to sex." That's exactly what she's saying. So now we have an understanding. I can try my best on my end. You can try your best on your end. Now we have an understanding to keep in check with each other. So that's the very first thing I'll say. But I'm gonna share the floor.
Coach, you want to go next?
I was gonna go last.
Okay. Okay. I would say I would say that there needs to be some type in that resolution, and this isn't always, but one of the best things is if you have some type of action plan going forward, right? So if it brought up a conversation enough to where we're having to have this conversation, go back and forth, you clearly feel a type of way, I feel a type of way. Okay, what is going forward the way that we're going to deal with this, right? um like Rex says, if we're using the example of the shoes in the living room, okay, we get on the same page. They're like, okay, this is how you're going to put your shoes up now so that it doesn't get in the way, she doesn't trip over in the middle of the night, right? um it's those small things that to me are the biggest, because then you have something to hold each other accountable to,
Yeah.
right? If you don't have a plan and you only have feelings, right? Certain circumstances are just about the feelings, right? Other circumstances are about tangible actions that need to be done differently in order for feelings to not be hurt or triggered in the first place.
Yeah.
So when it's those type of circumstances, there needs to be an outline, an action plan. What is going to be different this go round that we can hold each other accountable to? So that means if you're talking about accountability, what's going to happen? How is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? Right? And I believe that there should also be a conversation on how do we show appreciation once said thing happens. Because if we're going to make something stick, people benefit off of positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
And if you go in and you do the things that your partner has asked you to do, I think we undervalue that,
Yeah.
right? Because people can very easily stay doing things the way that they've always done them. The fact that somebody is willing to say, okay, the way that I'm moving is causing you harm, and I love you enough to go through the work to change something that's a habit of mine in order to make you more comfortable. it is important that we praise our partners for those particular things, because that reinforces to them that, okay, cool, this really does make this person happy,
Yep.
versus I'm doing the right things and you still nagging about something else now. Like, come on, give that person that reassurance to say, babe, I appreciate the fact that you did this different, because I know that this is something that you trying.
Absolutely. That's really good. What you got, coach?
Now that was really good. One thing I was gonna say is your feelings aren't facts.
Bro, what? We're telepathic. That's it. I literally wrote that down. Feelings ain't facts.
Because we go together.
Wow.
Oh, oneness. Your feelings, they are not facts, and they are fatal when you focus on them. And to prove that point, Moses. Let's go to Moses, okay? Moses had a stuttering, he had a speech impediment. Moses had an insecurity around speech, even though Moses told Pharaoh 10 times, let my people go.
Yeah.
When the people was let go, the nagging was not, right? So they in the wilderness and they complaining. I should have just stayed in Egypt. I know I was a slave, but at least I had some bread.
Had some water.
Somebody, that's how we be acting. So they nagging. Moses go to God like, listen, you gotta get them, because I done did all this with a parted this sea. I done had to go and get past my stuttering, and I'm still hearing whining. And God was giving them manna every day, not every other day, not every other week, every day. They still was complaining, right? So they complaining. He tells them, strike the rock. He strikes the rock. Here comes water. Now they all happy. Half of y'all act the same way. Soon as it go your way, now you happy. All right, my man. But he, my man. He's that way. My man. When the water not coming, right? He not. Some of y'all act like that. Just look to the left. Don't look to the right, because he gonna be eyeing you. Okay, if you sit next to your partner right now.
Yeah.
And so he goes back to God again, because as soon as their little throat got dry, it was back complaining. And this next time that he goes back, God tells him to speak to the rock. But it was the feelings of all the nagging, the environment that he had been in, that made him do the last thing he heard, but not the last thing God said. And he was marched out. And then here we see Joshua come. So when you think about your feelings, Moses did all of that, and he still marched out. And the same ones that was nagging and complaining and whining, some of them, not all of them, saw the promised land that he never got to see. So when you're in leadership, it's important that you keep your ears to the right things and to the right conversations. And as partners, and I'm speaking for women because I'm a woman, it is your role to be the partner and not the problem. Be the part of be in the partnership and solve the problem together. Because imagine what Moses could have done had he spoke to it. So communication has been an issue since the Bible days. Because he could have spoke to that rock, but the feelings of the naggers got him looking fatal, and you don't see him any longer. The end.
Bro, feelings ain't facts, man.
You done came on here and preach.
I'm telling you, that's why everybody on the live, on the channel, go ahead and invest in an emotional wheel. Get the screenshot, get it to your phone. Yes, you feel fearful. Yes, you feel sad. Yes, you feel genius. Yes, you feel joy. Yes, you feel these things. But you can't always believe them.
Yeah.
Right? There's a story behind the feelings, yes. It's good to understand the feelings, yes, but they ain't facts. Feelings ain't facts. That's really good, guys. Anybody else want to add to that? Do we have any more questions in the chat?
No, just a bunch of fire emojis.
bet. All right, bet. So check this out. Next question. How does past relationship trauma affect your current fear of communication and conflict? And how can you work through it together? Man. So we had this conversation on
Hold
on
on,
the pod.
Can you repeat that question one more time?
Absolutely.
I'm in the chat.
Yeah. How does past relationship trauma affect your current fear or communication and conflict? And how can you work through it together? So one more time. How does past relationship trauma affect your current fear of communication and conflict? And how can you work through it together? So I'm actually going to respond first and say, I remember in my past relationships, I would mirror my partner and they would mirror me. So if one of us got ticked off and stepped outside of our window tiles and start yelling, the other person got ticked off, stepped out outside of window tiles and start yelling. I also remember um, not feeling validated, but I also wasn't a validator, right?
Right.
I also remember not being empathetic. So I didn't receive empathy either. So if I'm expressing something, they're like, well, why do you want me to feel bad for you when you ain't never feel bad for me? Right? So I'm going into arguments expecting the worst. I'm going into arguments expecting that this conflict is probably going to break us up. It's probably going to make me turn away from this person. It's probably going to make me try to turn to someone or something else. So with that being the case, I always fear going into conflict because of who I became in it and the outcome of it.
Uh,
Right? So now I'm in this position to where if my lady were to text me and say, "Hey, we need to talk," that anxiety already pops up
mhm.
because I'm like, "Oh shit, here we go." You just don't know what that may look like. Or if I hop on the phone and I feel like her energy is off, I'm automatically going to assume that it's because of me, right? It could have been something that happened to her at work, could have been a conversation she had with her dad, or just whatever. But I'm already assuming it's going to be connected to me. So because I experienced that trauma before in the past, it kind of followed me in this relationship. But you have to consistently remind yourself to be present, to acknowledge what's happening, and don't make assumptions. Because the only thing assuming does, it makes an ass out of you and me.
Woo! That's good, Rex.
Yes,
That's good.
sir.
Man, everything you said, bro. And it's something that we've talked about on the Let's Talk Like Men podcast. We've talked about this. We also had a conversation about this, I believe, this past weekend.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that for me personally, I'll tell my story, right? Pettiness, huge pet peeve of mine because of my past ex, right? Pettiness was a tool in our relationship for her to be able to express the emotions that she felt um, without being able to admit her wrongdoing. And that
Mm.
was something that really traumatized me for a long time. And even still this to this day, it still holds a very big place because when I feel like my girlfriend is being petty, I get immediately, I'm like, no, I'm not going through this again. Right. So I'm gonna tell you all the strategies that I use to work through that personally. So the first thing that I have to do in those moments is realize that she isn't the continuation of the previous person's problems,
That's good.
right? Just because she's doing a similar thing, or even when I'm assuming, because there's a lot of times that I'm assuming she's being petty and she's not, right? But I'm seeing similar characteristics. And so my mind, you're always going to be triggered quickly. You're, you know, fear, fight or flight, right? Your body's trying to protect itself. So when something has hurt you in the past, you're going to peep those different signs super quick and be like, no, this is danger, danger,
Yeah.
danger. And so you're going to get defensive. So I have to realize that just because something has the same symptoms doesn't mean it's the same illness.
Mm.
Like
That's
just
good.
because you coughing and you sneezing doesn't mean you have COVID. You could have the flu, you could have a seasonal allergy, you could have a bunch of different things going on. You might just have an irritation in your nose, right? Just because you got the same symptoms that you see, don't mean the problem is the same. And
That's
so that's
good.
the first thing I have to realize is that my partner is not a continuation of what happened in the past. You have to give yourself credit if you know you've done some self work to know that you didn't hop into a relationship with somebody that did the exact same things the last person was doing.
That's
If
good.
you did that self work, then you shouldn't be concerned about the fact that this person is going to harm you the same way this past person did. The next thing that you got to do after that is I think you have to recognize and express that to your partner and let them know, like, look, I struggle with this particular thing. I expressed it to my girlfriend whenever those moments happen. Like, look, it feels petty to me. It might not be that, but that's why this feels petty. And the thing that I ask of her is, look, if you know that I struggle with this particular thing, My request for you, because I can't demand that out of you. My request for you is that you be cognizant of what my past traumas are, so that
Mm.
when we go through particular things, you acknowledge and recognize those things. If I know my partner has dealt with, as a man, let's say domestic abuse, and or dealt with an abusive father that always yelled, if I'm going into a conflict with this person, I need to be very careful about my tone. Because
Yeah.
even though my tone may not be something that's meant to be aggressive towards this person, because those symptoms are, they're going to automatically trigger this person. Now we're in a whole different conversation that has nothing to do with what we were even supposed to be talking about in the first place.
Yeah.
So I think that we both have to be in a place to where people say don't cater to your partner's insecurities. I think there's a healthy level of that in any relationship where you have to say, look, I know you're insecure about this. So while you working through this, I'm going to be cognizant of this. We're going to work through it. We're going to hold you accountable. But this is what I can do on my end to help you with this as you're growing through it, to not aggravate you as you're growing. So I think that that's a healthy way, or a one key way that trauma affects you, and then how you can work with your partner to get through it.
Mic drop. That's amazing, brother. That's amazing, brother. What you got, coach?
Man, both of those were really great. And what I thought about was two things. And Miles, I think you kind of touched on it about like if you've done the work, you shouldn't be back in the same predicament, basically, like with the same type of person. But let's just keep it a stack. How do you know you've done the work? And a lot of times people will say they've done the work because it sounds good. It's like cleaning the kitchen, but you didn't clean the counters or sweep the floor. That is not cleaning the kitchen. I'm sorry. It's not. Okay. It's not that, is not that. So people will unfortunately again attract the unhealed version of themselves. So a lot of times that fear that they have is being led by the rejection, the trauma, what have yous, right? And so that definitely being a thing. And then also understanding that being held accountable is not the same thing as being disciplined. Sometimes
Mm.
when we hear that, okay, we're gonna be held accountable, we think is Judge Judy and you're about to go to prison. Like being held accountable is not about being disciplined. It's not about someone chastising you. It's about someone loving you enough to help you to stay honest to yourself and honest to your word, right?
Yeah.
So like it's really about love and covering at that point. If people don't love you enough to cover you, even when you uncovering yourself, that's a problem. And then I'm gonna end out right here because I had to pick my study Bible up and roll right on to Matthew chapter 7, verse 1. So you ain't got to go that far.
Yeah.
And it's very straightforward. And it says, do not judge others, and you will not be judged.
Yeah.
Real simple, right? But my study Bible go a little extra because I think it was written by Black people, because it gives Black people gather your baby curl edges kind of explanations. And so it breaks it down further and explains it. It says, Jesus tells us to examine our own motives and conduct instead of judging others. The traits that bother us in others are often the habits we have ourselves. And our bad habits and behavior patterns are the very ones that we most want to change in others. So do you find it easy to magnify others' faults while excusing your own? And if you're ready to criticize someone, check to see if you deserve the same criticism. Judge yourself first and then lovingly forgive and help your neighbor.
That's good.
So I'm gonna send you to Matthew 7 and 1.
That's good.
Yeah.
What does the Bible say about the fruit of the tree? Judge it by the what?
By its hold on.
By the fruit that it bears, right?
Yes.
Yes, judge a
Yeah.
tree by the fruit that it bears.
Exactly. So the question that was posed, how do you know somebody's done the work?
The
It's,
fruit.
it's all in the fruit. It's all in the fruit. You can tell somebody's done the work if they used to argue all the time and now in the midst of conflict, they're more patient, they're more kind, they're more forgiving, they're more compassionate. If a person always turns to the bottle, always turns to negative coping mechanisms or whenever stress gets too high, you can judge them based off that. right? You can judge them based off how they react to themselves or how that self talk that they give. You can judge them based off how they spend their money or spend their time, especially when it comes to their leisure time. You can judge them by how they respond to different triggers and conflicts. So you judge a tree by the fruit that it bears, and that's how you judge humans by the patterns that they have.
And can I say one more thing on that, Rex?
Oh, most definitely.
I was having this conversation with my boy Aaron, and we were talking about this on a totally different topic. But I asked him that same question: how do you know what's God and what isn't God? Right? He said the fruit. And one of the things I added to that was, I think we also got to ask God for heavenly wisdom, because in judging that, right, fruit looks good. There's a very particular fruit that looked very delicious at the very beginning of the Bible, and it bared sin, right? And we have to remember that the devil can give you the desires of your heart too. So some things can look good, but it ain't always of God.
Yeah.
And so on top of knowing the fruit that somebody's bearing, like, oh, okay, it looks good. They go into church every single Sunday. They seem quiet and they this, that, and that. We don't know what's going on behind them closed doors. People show up as their best selves, wearing that fruit all over them.
Yeah.
Talking right and everything. But we got to also ask God for the discernment, right? To where he can reveal to us the things that our eyes may not see, right? Where he can step in and say, you got to know deception when it comes across you.
Yeah.
So I think that that's another thing. Absolutely true. The fruit, absolutely. I just think that's an added piece that we need to also ask God for. Is like Solomon, right? God literally asked him, what do you want? Like, ask me for whatever you want. You've been so faithful to me. Solomon said, you've given me a kingdom. And I'm not naive enough to think that just because I'm the son of a king that I know how to run a kingdom, right? And I've seen the mistakes my father made. Give me wisdom so that I can discern who is and who isn't of you, and who is and who isn't, and what is it that I do that's of you and isn't of you. And because of that, Solomon not only was given the wisdom, but he was given every desire of his earthly heart as well.
Yeah.
God told him he'd be remembered forever as the greatest king to ever live. Like, we got to ask for that godly wisdom too.
And it's important because the Bible also speaks to the weeds and the wheat grow at the same time.
Come on.
and they grow at the same time. So having that discernment to know the difference is definitely important. Just like if you have a history of dating toxic men or toxic women, you have a history of leading with your body, you have a history of having negative thoughts and negative cognition about dating relationships, you're not ready for the next relationship until you heal yourself and the reasons why you've always done that. Because if you don't heal, only thing you're going to do is you're going to be dating new people but the same patterns.
Yeah.
New people but the same pattern. So that's just so important for you to take the work to do the healing. When you do the healing, you can have discernment. When you have discernment, you can choose better. When you choose better, you create and produce more fruit. So that's really good. So let's pause for a second. Do we have any questions in the chat?
No, just a bunch of fire.
and some hearts over here on the Facebook side, and some hearts. I
Look,
did want
I think my mama watching live right now.
Your dad watching
okay.
too.
Hey,
Your pops
Rex
on
Mama.
All right, what it is, what it is, what it is.
You hear me? Your pops on here too.
Hey, what it is.
Hey, Rex Daddy. I wanted to say something just to end out what you guys both said. Galatians 5:22, that's your 9 fruits of the spirit. So, listen, go look to see how many he got, baby. Do the math. 3 out of 9. Do math again. Back when you was in school, 3 divided by 9 times 100 give you the percentage. Okay. Go check that. What's the percent on that? And then the 5 D's that the enemy uses to get us out of our to play against us. So the 5 D's, this is his framework, right, of how he gets results. 1 is doubt. He makes you question God's word and his goodness. 2 is discouragement. He makes you look at your problems rather than at God. 3, diversion. He makes the wrong things seem attractive so that you will want them more than the right things, which is what he did with Eve and that apple.
Yep.
Then 4, defeat. He makes you feel like a failure so that you don't even try. And then 5, delay. Makes you put off doing something so that it never gets done. So if you're in relationship with a person that makes you do one of these 5, he probably working or she probably working for somebody who gonna write hot checks.
Yeah, that's good.
There go your
That's
5D framework right there.
Man,
Good.
doubt, discouragement, divergent, defeat, and delay. That's really good.
Yeah.
Somebody said, I saw some early day. He said, if the devil knows he can't get you off your path and he can't distract you, he'll try to speed you up.
Yeah,
I was like, oh, that's
yeah,
good. That's good. He'll try and make you so busy and in so many different places at one time that you start losing focus of what you need to be focused on.
yeah.
I said, man, that's good. But the devil has many tricks. Many tricks.
And you know, I saw something today also. It says the devil ain't gonna never lay a hand on you, but he's just gonna convince you that you should do something wrong or you should do something. What did it say? The devil never lay his hands on you, but he would try to convince you to do something that you know you shouldn't be doing. In other words, convince you or talk you into the sin.
Yep.
And it talked about when the devil tempted Jesus on the mount, and he said, "If you're really the Son of God, jump off. For it is written, right? For it is written that he will send his angels to
What
catch on
Jesus
and come catch you." So you know, he said it's not good for anybody to tempt God or to
said?
test
It's
God.
God.
No, literally, but that's what the devil gonna do every single time. He's gonna try to tempt you. He's gonna try to speak the negativity. He's gonna tell you to self harm. He's gonna tell you to drink that bottle. He's gonna tell you to go talk to that girl. He's gonna tell you to do all the things you're not supposed to be doing.
Yep.
But you have to do what Jesus did on that third tempt. He said, "Flee from me." You hear me? You gotta. I never understood it when my great granny used to watch us. Um, she used to scream, "Flee!" Like, get away. And as kids, you would never understand it. You're like, what is he screaming about? But
Girl,
now I get it. Like, whenever you're weak, whenever you're doing something that is to glorify God, whenever you're trying to get married or whenever you're trying to start a new business that has to do with serving people and you have those attacks.
Yep.
Or when you're trying to be a faithful man and you got them all these baddies trying to come at you, or you're trying to be a bride and you have all these men with everything that you've always wanted a man come at you, you have to be able to say flee. You have to have something that's going to help you push that away, because if not, you're gonna get lost in the sauce trying to be a boss.
You know how I go.
You know what I'm saying? So listen, we got one more question.
One more.
All right, so why is it
Don't y'all be
important?
leaving because we talking about God. Y'all need this.
oh, this is the best time to come.
Uh-huh.
I'm telling you. So the question says, why is it important to embrace conflict as a natural and necessary part of a healthy relationship? And how can couples do that effectively? So once again, why is it important to embrace conflict as a natural and necessary part of healthy relationships? And how can couples do that effectively?
I'll lead this one.
Go ahead, big dog.
So hold on, I'm finishing typing. All right, cool. I think it's important because it ain't going nowhere. The bottom line is it's not going anywhere. You are going to have conflict in every relationship and in everything that you do in life. Why? Because conflict is what spurs growth.
Mhm.
Without going through any level of obstacle or challenge, you can't grow. It don't matter if you're talking about in the gym. It don't matter if you're talking about in your grades. It don't matter if you're talking about in your lifestyle. Whatever it is going on in life, it requires conflict in order for you to grow. Rex was talking about how he felt like every single challenge that he faced at a certain point was a prerequisite to the next phase of his life.
Yeah.
You got to go through those phases. And part of that in a relationship is conflict. Conflict even happens in waves in relationships. When you first starting off in a relationship, you have a period where nothing can really get y'all into an argument. Everything's fine. And even when you guys have the arguments, it ain't that serious. Then after that cupcake phase wears off, you a year, 2 in, you really start to ask yourself, damn, there's a lot of conflict happening. Do we really want to do this?
Yeah.
Right? Then after that, you get to a point to where it's like, okay, I think we finally, if you're doing it, in the right spirit, I think we're starting to put our egos out of the way and maybe starting to understand each other a little bit better. And then you get into the lull, you get comfortable. And then after you get comfortable, here comes another new set of conflict. Conflict will always happen because as you change, as that person change, there's going to be different things that you guys are not going to see eye to eye on. So that's why it's important because it ain't going nowhere and it's necessary for growth. The way I think that you can do it in a healthy way, how you can embrace it effectively, is for you guys to realize that this is only going to make us stronger. Realizing that conflict is not fatal. And we be believing that conflict is a sign that this relationship is not working. And that is not necessarily the case. Conflict is going to happen. It is inevitable. It is the way you guys process said conflict. It's the way that you guys move forward after that conflict has subsided. It's the way that you treat and love each other when you wake up on a daily basis after you were arguing with each other the night before.
Yep.
When you went to bed that night, did you tell this person, you know what, even regardless of all this, I still love you? Right? Me and my lady had an argument just the other night. And in the middle of it, after, I don't know if it was in the middle or at the end of it, but she was like, I'm sorry if you feel like sometimes I don't get it. And I told her, and she was like, I hope you still love me. Women do this. And it's like, why would I not love you? Women love to do this. And I said, I love you more in the midst of conflict than any other time because that's when it's needed the most for me to love you. Who am I if when it get hot, my love for you decreases? I have to call upon my love more in this moment because I could go be selfish and I could say, I'm not dealing with this. Or I can make a different decision that says, I love you too much than to let the conflict that we're having get in the way of what I know is a good thing. So you got to accept it as a part of your growth, a part of the journey, and know that conflict is not fatal. And to me, if you do those two things, it's inevitable and you embrace it as a part of y'all getting better, then it's an opportunity. It's not just an obstacle.
That's absolutely amazing. It's an opportunity, not an obstacle. That's amazing. What you got, Coach?
So I had to write a couple things down as you were talking. So one of the things that I thought about was something that my mom always says. And she always says, a faith that has not been tested cannot be trusted. Always. So if it hasn't been tested, you can't tell me how this person gonna show up because we ain't went through no real battles yet. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And for me, I prefer to see a person really as they're evolving, because a lot of times people can show up as their representative, show up looking like they got their crap all together. And then what happens if you don't know they had like an issue with depression and one thing gonna take them down? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I look for resiliency. To me, resiliency is extremely attractive in a partner. So that's one thing. The other thing is that conflict invites a deeper connection. And so a lot of times we try to avoid the conflict, but then we feel like, oh, this is just surface level. Well, there's a deeper connection. And it all goes back to what we call it. For me, I call it moving forward. So I have moving forward conversations. I don't have conflict. I have moving forward conversations.
That's good.
So that's one. The other is negotiating. It's the great time to negotiate. And be able to say what it is you truly want, what your objective is, and be able to truly get heard. And for women, a lot of times we don't like to negotiate because most times we don't really know what we want. Okay, we're not that clear. We're hungry, but we don't know what we want to eat, and everything you just said we don't want to eat, right? Yeah. So,
swear to God.
So we will avoid negotiating at all costs. But negotiating is for the self-aware. Negotiating is for the self-aware. And then for the strategy of like, how can couples do this effectively? I love the 4 agreements. So here goes your 4 agreements. 1, be impeccable with your word. Even with your partner, if you try to test it and try it and all this other stuff, is this person impeccable with their word? Are you impeccable with your word? Then the next, don't take anything personally. I always tell people when you start to take it personal, now you're making it about you and it's not about us, right? So not to take things personally and project. The third, don't make assumptions, which we talked about today. And then the 4th, always do your best and ask, like, when you're reevaluating, should you go off or be mad and not talk to him or give him the cold shoulder and make him ask you 10 times what's wrong when you knew it was wrong 2 weeks ago? Like, think about, was he trying to do his best? Was this his best? Was I doing my best? Because at that point, now we can come together on an agreement, and the agreement changes everything. So that's my take on it.
That's good. That's good.
Not the mic drop.
Right. Hey, that's. I think you guys covered all the bases because the only thing I was gonna say was conflict is the fastest way to connect. Is a fast way to connection. And
Yeah.
those are strategies. These are strategies. So like just like we do on a podcast, just like we do on every live, not only do we want to give you information, we want to give you solutions. Because what's information without solutions? What's information without practical tips on how to use it? You just become knowledge junkies if you just take in so much. But if you don't know how to apply it, if you don't know where to start to apply it, if you don't know what it looks like when it's supposed to be applied, then you're never going to become better at it. So that's what I want to say. That what Daryl said, man, this was so good. We appreciate you, big dog.
Always showing love, my guy.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to close out, let's give them one takeaway, whether that's from the conversation or something else that you may have.
Be quick to apologize, and slow to anger.
Yeah, that's
That-
biblical. You hear me?
that's key. You apologize quick. You know you wrong, or even if you didn't intend for something to go the way it did, but it hurt their feelings, just apologize. Guarantee you it prevents so much from building up, and be slow to anger, because when you don't take it personal, remember this person has your best interest in mind.
That's good. What about you, Coach?
Um, I would say don't move on in peace if you're still in pieces.
What?
What is going on? Oh,
Don't move on in
talk about
peace
that
if
real
you're
quick.
still in pieces. And so I'm gonna tell you what I take from that. In other words, don't try to leave the conversation if you still feel broken. If there's not understanding,
That's
if it
yeah.
goodness,
Wow.
that's so good. You know, I told my lady that today. I said when there's something that's unsaid or undone, I fester in it, and my energy is off, and I can't move. I'm gonna say it. If it's on my heart, I gotta say it. Hey, look, Miles, no. If
All on his face.
it's on
All
my
on
heart,
his face.
I be sitting out here like I be nudging the bricks. Come on, man.
but I'm
Ain't doing
telling you,
that.
that's good. Okay, so what I'm gonna end out with by saying this. Margot said his daughter said the biggest mistake in communication is thinking that it happened. In other words, it's your responsibility to facilitate your words and your delivery in a way that is biteable for the next person, that is feasible for the next person, that's effective for the next person. I can't speak to Lauren the same way I speak to a kid. We speak two different languages, right? I can't speak. We just won't understand it. If I read my thesaurus and I'm in a dictionary and I'm reading 1,000 books and I go to the and if I go to a community where they dropped out of middle school
Yep.
and I try to use that same language, it won't make sense. So you got to meet people where they are. You have to speak to people as where they are. And if somebody's in a heightened state, just remember, if I'm outside of my window of tolerance, I am not in a position to understand what you're saying. I now have to self-soothe and calm myself down so we can have a better understanding. So once again, the biggest mistake in communication is thinking that it happened. It starts with you. The onus is on you. If it's not getting through to them because they don't understand it, figure out a new way to say it. And
Yes.
that's and with that being the case, man, that's all we got for y'all tonight.
Absolutely. Coach, let them know what we got coming up.
Man, so a couple things. First of all, if y'all have not joined Rex and Miles Men's Morning Mastery, they let me come one time, y'all. I'm trying to come back. I like being with them. But
Yeah.
I'm telling you, man, it is like just one of the most beautiful spaces I have ever been in for men. And it's 6:55 in the morning to about 7:35 a.m. ish. Okay, Monday through Friday. But when I tell you that call is so structured, it's so it's just such a collaborative space. Like, click the link in their bio and register. It's free to register. If you want to be able to start your morning off strong, man, you gotta tap in with my big bros. Like, they're amazing. So I love that space. I'm gonna come back. Yeah, I'm coming back to the men's morning mastery. I'm gonna put a baseball hat on.
It's good.
And slide on in. And then of course our group coaching program is kicking off in January. So we're already enrolling. So if you are moving toward marriage, if you are a couple and y'all like, I think we're ready to do this, click the link in my bio. Let's book a call. And because we want to see you win, man. If you date right, you won't marry wrong. Okay. So so tap in with the team, man. And that's it.
Coach Lauren, you are the queen of quotables. Let me tell you something. Don't miss. We love y'all, man. Y'all have a great rest of your week. We will see y'all again next Tuesday. Don't miss out on anything. Peace.
Peace.
Good night.